What you need approval?
She has some questions.
Put this right here. Preserving faith. Preserving faith. We're continuing our lesson on faith. We didn't really teach last week from the lesson itself. This week, I'm going to combination of both, I think. Because when I look at that key verse that we have, let us hold fast to the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who has promised is faithful. When I look at that, my mind starts to wander a little bit about who we put trust in and who we put our faith in. And I'm not talking about spiritual. I'm just talking about our physical, faith, trust, and hope, and who we put it in when we deal with stuff, I should say. Some of our friends we put our trust in, in relationships. We put our trust in our significant other in relationship. We put our trust and hope in family members. But a lot of the times, before we even do that, we need to look at the track record of that person. We need to look at the characteristics of that person. Because a lot of the times, we should be surprised when it comes to deal with people, because exactly who they are. Mm-hmm. So when we first get to meet somebody and you start to know someone, you should go in trusting them. You should go in that not with preconceived ideas or notions, because we got to think about it this way too. Just because somebody tells you something about somebody, that doesn't mean it's always true. If you're going in with a bad thought on someone, you're not getting to know them yourself. So we should always go in with an open mind. But once we start learning that person and start to know that person, then we learn that person, I should say. Then we can start developing our ideals or gather the information, because they're going to tell us exactly who they are. If a person starts, you ask for a favor, and that person delivers, and you keep asking for stuff, and they ask you for stuff, and y'all have give and take relationship. That when you need some, they're there. When they need some, you're there. And the first time it happens to where you need them and they can't deliver, where you be chopping up as there must be something going on. They just don't have it, because every time I've asked, they have it. I kind of mentioned that in my sermon yesterday. We live in a society that is a what have you done for me lately society. You can every month. You can pay somebody a bill every month after month after month after month. Then you get to December, January. December, and you can't do it because of Christmas stuff, and they never did nothing for them in their life. So you got to realize that you base your stuff on the person and their track record. When we come to Jesus, we see, as this verse says, that we have hope without wavering, for he who has promised is faithful. We know the person that has made that promise is faithful to us. Matter of fact, he has never wavered on his promises. Mm-hmm. He has never went back on his word. Everything that has been said has been done. We don't have to remind him of the favors or what he said. I'm used Taylor for example, her and Sister Adrian, because I know Jazz and all of them has did this. Taylor said, Mama, I think I need a phone. And Mama say, well, yeah, I'll probably get you one. I'll get you one. And every day that Taylor doesn't have that phone, she's reminded her Mama, now you remember. You remember?
Yes.
You said if I did good at school, you was going.
Yeah.
3 days later, Mama ain't got the phone yet. Now, Mama, you remember.
Yep.
Right? All right. But we don't have to mind Jesus up there. He already knows what he said. He's going to be faithful to us. The question is, are we faithful to him? And the thing that we're talking about with preserving faith here is just that word preserving. We got to preserve it through no matter what happens. And I remember my great grandma with all the jars that she had on the table with okra or mine was red hots. I used to love her peppers because she'd take them and preserve them. I used to go in there after she did it and kind of sneak one out every night, and she know I did as I come out sweating. But when you did that, you steal that container, you put it away, and nothing happens to it. It is being preserved. When we look at our preserving faith, we got to look at it as in our faith is put in that jar, and no matter what happens around it, is not going to break our faith. It's not going to break that jar. And even if that jar cracks or breaks, guess what? What they used to do, they used to just get the stuff back up and start all over again. So sometimes we got to realize that in our faith and in our daily walks, stuff is going to happen that's not only going to challenge our faith, it is going to shape the very foundation that our faith is built on. And when that happens, we have to keep moving. We can't just not, we can't just stay there. When we look at the Hebrews right here and we see the continuing talk about faith, because remember last week, I think that was last week, and y'all could correct me if I'm wrong, it told us what faith was. The substance of things hoped for, evidence of things not seen. And we made the comment that even when you're at home, when you sit down in that chair, you don't shake the chair. You just sit down because you got the faith that it was going to hold you. Mm-hmm. Even this morning, and I'm going to use me as an example, Brother McKay. When I got up, well, all last night, starting about 2:30 this morning, I woke up, my knee was killing me. I was in pain. I tossed, I turned, I tossed. But when I got up, mm-hmm. I jumped up. I had faith that the knee was even though it hurting. Mm-hmm. I didn't step out bed, and kind of put pressure on it. Mm-hmm. I just jumped up and tried to walk on it because I knew I had the faith that it was gonna hold me. It was gonna hold me. Now, if I'd have stepped and fell, then it'd have been a different story. Sister Linda probably fussed at me. But I had faith that it was gonna hold me. But not only that, when we got ready to go truck and all of that, I had faith that the truck would start. So that was faith, and not only that, watch this, the truck has never failed me before. So my preserving faith is every time I go to crank up my truck, it's going to crank up. Then the one time it doesn't, I'm going to say it's got to be something wrong because it's been working all this time. So it has to be something I'm going to investigate what's wrong. And that's the way, going back, I should have probably used that example first. That is the way we should deal with people on a daily basis. If they have come through time and time again, that one time that they couldn't, mm-hmm. we know there's something wrong. Mm-hmm. Because they've been through. But on the flip side, every time you got to that truck, a car and you hit that and crank up, you're not expecting it. When you get that and crank up the first time, you surprised. Because every time you got to it, you knew you had to prime it, you knew you had to pump the gas, you knew you had to say a prayer. you was gonna be there for a minute. Then the time it crunk up, like wow. So you know when you look at stuff like that, that's the same way we should carry over when we deal with people. But the thing is, when it comes to our faith, we don't have to worry about none of that. Because Jesus has been true, and we always say this. He's the same God yesterday, He's the same God today, and He'll be the same tomorrow. Then we'll say His word, because we will stop talking about the person and talk about His word. His word is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We sit there and tell people He's a doctor in the room, a lawyer in the courtroom. He's bread to the hungry, water to the thirsty. You know, He's a lily in the valley. He's an Alpha and Omega. He's a beginning and the end. We say all of that until something happens to us. It's okay to tell people about Him, but it's another thing to Him. See, we can tell us to trust other people and trust God, but when it comes to us, do we do it? And that is that preserving faith. That's that preserving faith, because no matter what happens, Sister Anderson is right here. You see that Brother Caleb's going to start walking toward the door. That's that preserving faith. No matter what happens, no matter what we go through, we know the Lord is there every step of the way. That's that hope. That's that key verse. The promise, for He who has promised is faithful. He promised he'll be there no matter what. He promised us that He'll look after us no matter what. But more especially, He promised us that He would be the intercessor between us and the Father. Because let me go back for a minute. This is why we always should remain faithful, because we need to look at, and I know I'm not digging into this, but I want us to look at something for a second. When we look at Old Testament, when we look at the relationship that God had with His people, when somebody did something wrong, God punished them. And most of the time, punishment was death. Something wrong and commit certain sins, you died for your sins. When Jesus came, He became the intercessor, and He gave us grace and mercy. So now when we do something wrong, we don't have to wait on a yearly basis as about in telling the Bible. We don't have to wait for a whole year. Because remember, in Old Testament times too, had to make an atonement for your sins. But watch this, not only that, the priest had to be clean himself. If the priest wasn't clean, everything he did didn't even matter. So you couldn't even get atonement for sins because this nut wasn't right. He's supposed to do. So now I got a whole other year before I'm saved. But before I'm clean again, and not only that, if I mess up before that year, I'm not going to probably make it into heaven. So I got to try to last and survive a whole year before I'm washed clean. Can you imagine not being able to take a bath but once a year? Can you imagine not being able to take a bath but once a year? Right? But the bath you took, well, that once a year was based on somebody else running the water and making sure the water was clean. All right. So think about it. Not only do you have to wait the whole year, you got to make sure the person that's running the bath clean the tub. You know, got everything clean and ready for you, right? To do the clean, for you to bathe. Then what happens? Now watch this. I just want to think about this now. Everything was right. You done took your bath for the year. You walk outside of the sanctuary, walk outside of the place, and fall in some mud. Or fall into something else now you dirty again, and you got to wait a whole nother year. You didn't even last 5 minutes. Now you got to go, you got to wait, right? But when Jesus came, Jesus said, you do not have to wait a whole year. I am that sacrificial lamb. But not only that, I'm the priest also. So I've taken that responsibility. So now every time you get dirty, every time you want to take a bath, you ain't got to wait on nobody. You could just run and take a bath anytime you want. Anytime you want. And watch this. Let's think about this. And with some of our ancestors, they didn't have running water. Right? They had to go to the little pump it in the foot tub, then come on back in and bathe in that foot tub, then take it back out. So they didn't bathe every day. They didn't have running water, but now we have running water. We can take showers when we not dirty, just because we want to. It's hot outside. I'm gonna go take a cold shower. It's cold outside. I'm gonna go take a hot shower. All right. It's the same way with Christ, right? We can go to Him anytime. It don't even have to be nothing wrong, and we could go to Him. We could just have it. Everything could be going good, and we say, you know what, Lord, everything going so good. I just want to thank you. I just want to have a conversation with you, Lord. I want to. Matter of fact, things going so good, Lord. What do I need to do to help somebody else out to make sure things are keep going good for me? Right? So because of this, we should have that preserving faith. Because whatever is going on, we know we can go to the Lord. Right? That's just like, put back in our mind, when we're outside, right? We don't care about working up a sweat. Yeah, we might not want to get dirty, right? But we know if we do, I got a washing machine, I got a washing powder, I got soap, I could go take a shower at any time. So I'm not worried really about getting dirty. I'm not worried about it because I know I could go get clean at any given time. I know I could get back to my house and I'm able to take a shower. We have faith that when we get there, not only that, when I get there, I'm going to have not only running water, I'm going to have hot water. Right? We have faith. Right? And don't think twice about it. That's preserving faith in Christ. We should automatically know that no matter how dirty we get sinfully, that we can go to Him and we'll be washed clean. But not only that, we know no matter what we're going through, He's going to be there every step of the way with us. We know that. Now the question is, do we put that to practice? Because knowing some and putting it to practice is two different things. Amen. Knowing something is, yeah, I know who Christ is, right? Or better yet, let's stick with that analogy. Knowing something is, I know I got a shower. I know I got running water. I know I got hot water. I know how to turn the shower head on. I know how to run the water. Putting it to practice is getting in there, letting the water hit you. All right. So it's a difference in knowing how to do something and then putting it to practice. I know how to cook. I know how to put water on the stove. I know how to turn the stove on. I know how to boil the water. I know how to put an egg in it and all of that, a hot dog. I know all of that. I know you got to cut up, even before you cut up the greens, you need to wash them and pick them and all of that. Then you can cut them up whichever way you want. I know all of that. I know all of that. Doing it and putting it to practice is a different thing, right? Can I use another one? We know how to add and subtract and multiply and all of that because we learned it in school. But putting it to practice is another thing. We know how to count money and all of that, but when we standing at that counter and then people that gave us the wrong way, we're trying to figure it out. So it's different than knowing than putting it to practice. And watch this, using that money, we can sit at home, we can count it, and find we put it to practice. But it's a difference when you have to put it into practice under pressure, right? We can cook all day long for ourselves. But when people and friends and came over and now you got to cook and they sitting there watching and all of that, it's different. It's different than cooking under pressure. We always talk about at work, backing up trailers or backing up a boat to a boat ramp. And one of the guys said, "Oh, I could do it all day long until somebody's out there watching me." He said, "Even if the dog is watching me, I can't do it." He said, "But long as nobody is watching," he said, "when I get home, the dog and have nobody watching, I could back it up and back the boat up in the garage, fine, on one track." He said, "I get to the boat ramp and try to back it in, and it's a wide one, and somebody watching, I can't do it to save my life." So it's one thing to know how to do it. It's another thing to practice it. But what happens when you're under pressure? What happens when you're under pressure and have to perform? See, it's one thing to know what faith is. It's another thing to practice it on a day-to-day basis. But what happens when all you have to turn to is your faith? What happens when you know he's a doctor in the sick room, right? There's another thing to practice it when you go to the doctor to take your physical and it comes out everything okay. And you say, well, I knew that because he's a doctor in the sick room. Thank you, Lord. Right? There's another thing when the doctor comes back from that physical and say, we got to send you for more blood work because it may be cancer. Right? You still saying, oh yeah, he's a doctor in the sick room, Lord. I know you got me. I know you got me because you're a doctor in the sick room, right? Then it comes back, not only is cancer, it's terminal. Now where is your faith? Where's the faith at now? Are you still preserving your faith and knowing that he's still that doctor in the sick room? And you're still keeping that hope? It's a difference, right? It's a difference, and let me use this. It's one thing to know that he can do anything but fail, right? We know that. So we go to the car lot with knowing that the Lord will provide for us, right? And we pick out that car that we want. We know we ain't got the credit to get it, don't even have the right money to get it, but the Lord has provided for us to get that car. Well, 6 months later, here come the bills and bills and bills, right? And now we got that repo notice, right? Oh, the Lord will provide. The Lord will provide for me, Sister McKay. I ain't worried about it. I ain't worried about them folks trying to help me. I ain't worried about them folks that's dying come get my car because the Lord going to provide. Well, I wake up the next morning and the car gone, right? Am I still going to have faith knowing the Lord is going to provide, right? Because just like he gave me that one, he'll give me another one. But the thing is, I got to ask myself, what was I doing? And I was doing everything right. I was doing everything right. It just so happened a pandemic came and we got laid off. I bought the car because I was making good money. I was doing everything I was supposed to do, and the Lord provided for me. I put my faith into practice. But then a pandemic came, and the job that I had cut back hours. But I was still all right because I had enough saved up to pay my bills and keep the household running. But lo and behold, the money kept getting lower and lower. Then the pandemic got longer and longer. And now the job has laid everybody off because the job can sustain. I still got the faith because I know the Lord is going to provide. The Lord is still providing for me because I still got my home. I'm still able to eat. But I woke up that next morning and my car was gone. Am I still having, I know the Lord is going to provide. Right? So it's that preserving, putting that preserving faith into practice is something that we all have to do at some point in time. At some point in time. Because all of us are going to get challenged. All of us are going to go through something that our faith is going to be, like I said, challenged. And some things shape the very foundation of our faith. When we build a house, we want to make sure that foundation is stable. Because sooner or later, a hurricane is going to come or something's going to happen. Now, let's do it this way. Keeping with our theme of what we're talking about. When we build that foundation and build that house up, right? Little small winds and all of that comes, it's not going to mess with the foundation because the foundation was built to withstand that, right? But what happens when that Category 5 hurricane comes, right? And it shakes the house, but not only that, it messes up the whole house. But if you have a good foundation, what are they going to say? We can rebuild. We can rebuild. Because your foundation was strong. But if you have a crack in your foundation, what they're going to say? We got to tear that whole foundation up. You can't do it. Matter of fact, how many houses you've seen? House is still good, but it's starting to lean, starting to sink, because the foundation is no good. With our faith, if we're preserving our faith, as long as we have that foundation, we're okay. As long as we have that foundation and knowing whatever is going on, I'm okay. I'm okay. Now, like I say, it is one thing to know, it is one thing to say that. It's another thing to know it. It's a third thing to put it into action. You know, I always say, I always like Nike's slogan, just do it. Just do it. Because you can talk all day, but we just got to do it. When it comes to our religion, when it comes to our faith, we just have to do it. We have to go through it. One other thing I wanted to point out here, I lost the whole doggone. I want to point out here, and y'all can chime in any time too. I wanted to, and my plan was to go through all of this, but I wanted to point out something here when we talk about faith and Christianity itself. The Hebrews are during that time. Those that were Christians during that time, because you still had the Jewish religion and all of that, they were persecuted for being Christians. They were persecuted. I mean, you look at the disciples and all of that. They were martyred or killed for their faith. We in America right now, we really don't have to worry about that aspect of it, being killed because we are Christians. being killed because we love Christ. Now, we can be, when we look at it, the things that we have to go through as Christians is really when we deal with other church folk. We have to deal with those that claim to be church folk lying on us, right? We have to deal with those that claim to be church folk talking about us, mistreating us, because really when you think about it, a lot of the people we associate with, and maybe this is just me, y'all can correct me, and I want us to think about this. A lot of the people that we associate with and expect more out of are fellow Christians. Those that have been in church, those that know something about the Lord. Yeah. Them the ones that we really put our trust in. Them are the ones that we really associate with. Them are the ones that are counted in our circle. Them are the ones that's counted in our circle. And them are the ones that really let us down the most. Because I'm not worried about the one that don't believe in Christ. Right? I'm not worried about them. Right? Truthfully, and be told, let's just be honest with each other. I'm not even worried about the white Christians. I'm not worried about them either. Because they're not in my circle. It's the ones that go to McChapel. It's the ones that go to Mount Zion. It's the ones that go to Snow Hill. It's the ones that live in Mariana. It's the ones that live in Malone. Ones that live in Chattahoochee that goes to AME churches and some of the Baptist churches, some of the Pentecostal churches, and some of the other churches that I visited. Them are my close-knit. That's in my circle. And them are the ones that let us down the most. Right? So that's what we have to deal with as Christians. That's the faith that's the challenge that we have to deal with when other people that claim to know the Lord challenge our faith. But what happens when we look at, and I'm looking at the Sankofa. It says right here, the closest we know we come to persecution in our churches is when other members take our favorite seat in a worship service or park in the spot where we love to park our vehicles. And of course, there is the after sermon gossip. Compare the above instance of persecution to what Christians face in northern Nigeria. According to reports in Christian Today, Jennifer Lee on 16th July 2020, about 1,200 Christians were slaughtered in northern Nigeria in the early parts of this year. Some human rights group in the country say opposing religion extremists are practicing genocide against Christians. See, it's one thing for us, and I want us to think about this for a second. The things that we have to worry about is other Christians treating us wrong, right? Because the atheists and all of that, the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons and the Muslims and all of that, they're doing their thing, we're doing our thing. We can come together and have agreeable to disagree moment. We can have arguments about our religion. Then we go our separate ways. But what happens when it's time for you to defend religion and that defending can end in death? Do you still have the faith? Do we still keep the faith in times like that? That's a hard question. Do you keep the faith when you're staring down the barrel of a gun and this person says, if you say you're a Christian, I'm pulling the trigger? We don't have to worry. Thank God we don't have to worry about that. Right? So when we keep that in our mirror, knowing the stuff that we're dealing with, we should be able to keep our faith because it's keeping us from other Christians have to deal with. If I'm just right out, somebody stabbing me in the back, literally, and not physically, but stabbing me in the back with words and all of that, at least they didn't use a real knife. That is keeping the faith because things are better than really what they seem to be. Things are still what they seem to be. So when we look at this preserving faith, I'm going to get ready to close out because I see what time it is. When we look at our preserving faith, it says right here, and I'm going back again to our Bible study right before the Sankofa. As believers, we must use the access to God's presence. God's presence. We know we now have because of Christ. One way of doing it is for believers to meet together for worship and fellowship. It is still something about getting together and fellowshipping. Now, whether it's in the church like we are right now, or online, or wherever it is, even on the conference line, it is something about gathering with other believers. Because when you gather with other believers, when you gather with people that same agenda, that they just want to make it into heaven, they just want to do what they can to do their part to get into the gates of heaven. And if that's what they have in their mind, they're just trying to please the Lord, and you're trying to please the Lord, and you're around 4 or 5 other people that are trying to please the Lord, it works. Because even when you disagree on something, it still be okay. Because I'm not going to get upset because Sister Diane has a view than me. I'm not going to get upset because Sister Ada has a different view than me, because I know both of them are trying to accomplish the same thing I'm trying to accomplish. And what they're trying to accomplish is they're just trying to get into heaven. And it's all they already know, just like I do. It's hard to try to get there because different folks, and they don't want me to keep them from going, and they surely don't want them from keeping me, and me from keeping them. So sometimes the best thing is, oh, okay, Rail, I just don't understand. I just don't agree with it. Okay, so that's fine. So Dan, we can have a disagreeable moment, and we still in love and charity with each other. Because all of us are created, even though we're created in his image. The one thing that he gave all of us is our own mind, our own conscience, our own thought process. If all of us had this thought process, had the same mind, and all of that, we're robots. And we'll be marching to the same beat and all of that. Nobody have to train us to do anything. We will turn at the same time. We'll move at the same time. We'll talk at the same time. We'll hush at the same time. We don't do that. All of us are different. That's what makes Christianity, and that's what makes this world so special and unique. You hear me saying all of us are different body parts, but we're all one in Christ. Because all of us think different. Our faith hits us at different times. And matter of fact, in my closing, and why we have to keep preserving our faith, is because Jesus means something different to each one of us. He means something different to each and every one of us. To each and every one of us. What I'm going to use me and Adrian as an example right now. And Sister Linda. Sister Anderson too. Mother to the motherless. Our mothers are still floating around. To the mother to us. But somebody else, he's a mother to the motherless. Right? A doctor in the sick room. He is a doctor in the sick room for a lot of us, but for some that have never been sick, how can he be a doctor in the sick room? How can he be a friend to the friendless for some of us when every time we look around, we got people always around us, right? So he means something different to each and every one of us. So our faith is always going to be challenged. Our faith is by other Christians. Our faith is challenged, let me say, by other believers. Our faith is challenged by non-believers. And our faith is challenged by the person that we see in the mirror. It's a constant struggle. Every morning we get up, our faith is challenged.
Amen.
Our faith is challenged physically, mentally, and spiritually. How many of us this morning when we got up, it was a struggle to get to church? It was a struggle to get to church, and I'm just being honest. You know, after the night I had about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I started to send out a message right then and said, "We just gonna do it online." So I could dope myself up, Sister Diane. They got to worry about driving. It's a struggle. It's a struggle. But what we got to remember is this right here, and I'm going to that key verse, and I'm closing out. I'm sitting down for real. Let us hold fast to the confession of our hope without wavering. Let's hold fast to that confession. That confession that we made, I believe in God the Father, made of heaven and earth, and Jesus Christ, his only Son, who was conceived by Mary, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, dead, and buried. On the third day he arose. He is ascended into heaven, and he sits on the right hand of God the Father Almighty. From thence he shall come to judge the quick and the dead. I believe in Church Universal, communion of saints, forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and life everlasting. Isn't that what all of us said? And that's what all of us always repeat when we get baptized. Even Sister Taylor that just got baptized, we went through that with her, and she agreed, and she said yes. So when we hold true to our confession of hope, right? When we hold true to that confession, that we know he is our all in all. And our hope is he is our all in all. Because my hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. Right? That's what my hope is built on. And because of that, I don't waver. I may shake it, but as the song says, my soul is anchored in the Lord. I'm anchored. So I might fit, but I'm staying on course. And the reason why I am doing that, because for the person that made the promise to me is faithful.
Amen.
He's faithful. He's faithful even until death. And I'm going to add something. He's even until after death. Because he told us, if you believe in me, in my Father's house, there are many mansions. I will come back to get you. Right? So even in death, he's going to come back to get me. So he's faithful even to me after I pass on from this world. But watch this. He also told me that there's no way I can get to the Father unless I believe in him. So in him, I already know where I'm going to. So he's still faithful. Either way you look at it. If you in hell and you open up your eyes, Jesus was still faithful because he did exactly what he said he was going to do. If you're in heaven with him, you know he's faithful because he did exactly what he said he was going to do. And if you're still walking this earth, he did exactly what he said he was going to do because he woke you up and started you on your way. So no matter what we go through, no matter what issues we face, no matter how big or small they are, we got to preserve our faith.
Amen.
And just like I mentioned before, I think some of us walked in. You remember when I remember my great grandma used to preserve different foods and all of that, and the chili peppers or the hot peppers. I always stuck in the Sister Diane, hard head, and she knew I did it. But just like that, right? We got to preserve our faith in that jar. So no matter what comes, no matter what happens, we know our faith is protected. So thank y'all. I'll turn it back over to him.
Well, no, we had 2 lists. We had concerning faith, meaning faith, today, last for the day. If anyone wanna, just probably have a high point about faith. Tell them on that. Did anyone wanna just say a word or two of what faith means to you, or how we are holding on to our faith on an individual level?
Okay, if I may, faith on that is just different in each of us.
Yeah.
And others can say that one is stronger than the other because, first of all, none of us knows completely what the other has been through. Therefore, with each of our tested, which it will be, it's tested differently with each of us. Like the pastor said, if you've never been sick, you're not fully aware that our Father is a healer. So, and it's just different levels. Each of us is at different levels in our faith for different reasons, different levels. So basically, faith is an ongoing, I don't know if the word would be trial or just an ongoing endeavor for each of us. Because what we face today or what we faced yesterday, we don't know what's coming. If the Lord doesn't let us to see the next day. So we just have to continue to pray and ask for strength that our faith is increased. Okay? And because He will prepare us before time for what comes later. So we have to look at each test, like when we go into school. Okay, each test will clarify that we have achieved this particular situation, and we're ready for the next grade. So we just, it's just an ongoing thing. Our love, sometimes it comes easier than others, but our faith is just that. It's our faith.
Amen.
Nobody else's. Our walk, our faith.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dan, for that. I say concerning faith, because it really, what you said is encouraging to me. And one else at this time. This is not the normal now, but we just had one class, and I was just, before I do the high one for the elder, see how anyone else let's know about faith. Because really and truly, I know at my age, I am seeing some things that I never seen before or witnessed. Never been through no pandemic. And a lot of stuff that's not normal that we are used to. I think, me personally, I feel like the stronger your faith is, that you'll be able to handle situations that not normal much better. Because what we see now or going through, I know I realize my biggest help is support gonna be the Lord. That come from your instinct. I pray for increase in faith every day. Because like I said earlier, some of the things that we're experiencing right now, just like right now, this virus is picking up steam. We got kind of happy at one point with the vaccine that's going on. You're gonna have to stand on your faith. That's the bottom line. There's no one else. I'm gonna do a high point for that. Go with it. Maybe let the next on the level persevere, very faith, keep working. fast to the confession of our hope. For he who has promised is faithful. The lesson is about persevering faith, which calls for action and exercising our faith into the Lord. And in doing so, we must hold on, keep the faith, and endure with life-changing situations. And in Hebrews 10:36, it tells us, when we do these things, God will keep his promise. Therefore, a Christian and disciple of Christ, we must have a relationship with God. For Jesus died for the sin of the world, for repentance and sin. And God hears and answers prayer with if you have a sincere heart. So if we pray, keep the faith, and hold on, God.
Mm-hmm.
So at this time, I'll have you on McChapel.
Yeah, one thing I love to tackle for some reason.
We have our review.
Sister Diane said something you did too, Brother McKay, and I wanted to touch on that for just 1 second. Let me pull the scripture back up right here. And it might have been in the lesson itself. Verse 36. For you need endurance, so that when you have done the will of God, you may receive what was promised. Sister Diane made the mention of when we talk about faith, trials, and tribulations that you go through, right? This Christian race that we're running, you got to have endurance. And when you look at it, the only way you get stronger if you lift weights or you do some lifting to get stronger. The only way you get faster is you do exercises or training to get faster, right? The only way you get endurance if you want to run long distance is you have to train yourself to do distance running. With faith, the only way we get more faith is we got to go through stuff that challenge our faith. And what do we have to go through? We have to go through struggles. We have stuff in life, and the more, each week, the more I read, the more I prepare for sermons, the more I look at our lessons, the more stuff is starting to be even more clearer to me. It's starting to be in plain text and plain view. This Christian race that we run, this Christianity, this religion that we practice is not an easy one.
Amen.
It is not for the faint and the weak at heart. It is a hard religion. It's a hard faith. The reason why is because the word tells us it's not going to be easy. When you hear stuff like put on the whole armor of God, when you hear stuff like you got to have endurance, when you hear stuff like man born of a woman is on a few and short days and full of trouble, when you hear stuff like that, you realize that this walk that I'm on is not going to be an easy one.
Amen.
But when we talk about that preserving faith, this walk that I'm on is an easy one, but it's a constant one. And not only is it a constant one, it's a protected one. It's a protected one. Because the Lord is with us. And I don't want to get into the sermon. I just realized what I'm going to preach on this morning. I had an idea, and I thought I was going to change it. But I just want us to keep that in mind. This walk that we're on is a protected one. The journey that we're taking is a guided. So I'm protected and I'm guided. I got the faith in knowing whatever happens is for my good, no matter what happens, because I got to have the endurance to get through. That is what preserving faith is all about. So thank you once again.
Thank you, Pastor, for that fine review. Now, no announcement. Well, we're ready. We're all, yeah, we're gonna bless you, man.
One announcement, and I'm making it now because I see three of my financial people in here. Salem and me, and I mentioned it before, reached out for help with their budget. And we will do something to say for Salem AME Browntown this afternoon from the church. If any of you would like to contribute, just let me know, or you could do the check and send it to Sister Constance Gatewood, or give it to her to help Salem pay their budget. It's them now. It could have been us. It was only because we've been so good, been so faithful. It's because Lord's grace and mercy shined on McChapel to where we were able to do what we supposed to have been did. So I wanted to mention that, and we'll do it out of the benevolent fund. Also, thank each and every one of you who were able to get on yesterday to the presiding elder's retirement. We had some issues with the Zoom, with the passcode and all of that. We thank those that were able to get on. As always, we're fastly approaching annual conference. The 16th and 17th, I think, is annual conference. It will be by Zoom. So continue to pray, go into prayer for a safe annual conference and a safe return for your leadership team. And also that the Lord will send a presiding elder team, a leadership team on that level that's after his own heart. Thank you.